The crowd gasps as Marcus's small fingers hover over the queen. Victoria smirks, certain of victory. The wealthy spectators exchange knowing glances. Then Marcus slides his piece across the board. Richard's face drains of color. "Impossible," he whispers. The championship trophy suddenly seems within reach. Before I tell you this incredible story of courage and perseverance, where are you watching from today? Take a moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Can a 12-year-old chess prodigy really overcome the barriers of discrimination to defeat a seasoned champion? Let's find out together. Marcus Johnson woke before sunrise every morning in the cramped apartment he shared with his mother Elaine in South Boston. Their home consisted of 2 small rooms with peeling wallpaper and a window that never fully closed, letting in the bitter Massachusetts winter. At 12 years old, Marcus understood the weight his mother carried as a single parent. Elaine Johnson worked as a live-in housekeeper for the prestigious Whitfield family in Beacon Hill, one of Boston's wealthiest neighborhoods. 6 days a week, she cleaned their 4-story brownstone, prepared their meals, and catered to their every whim while Marcus attended the local public school. Weekends were spent in the servants' quarters of the Whitfield mansion when Elaine needed to work overtime, which happened increasingly often. It was during one of these weekend stays that Marcus first encountered the game that would change his life. Alexander Whitfield, the family's teenage son, often played chess with his private tutor in the library. Marcus had been instructed to remain invisible while the family engaged in their activities, but he couldn't help stealing glances at the elegant wooden pieces moving across the checkered board. The strategic dance fascinated him like a silent battle of wits played out in plain sight. When the Whitfields left for their weekend trips to Cape Cod, Marcus would sneak into the library. He taught himself the rules from the expensive chess books on the shelves, memorizing positions and strategies. With careful precision, he would study the board exactly as Alexander had left it, making mental notes of every piece before practicing moves in his mind. He never dared move the actual pieces, knowing such an offense would cost his mother her job. Instead, he created a makeshift chess set using scraps of paper with hand-drawn pieces and a grid sketched onto cardboard. At night, by the dim light filtering through the servants' quarters window, he would replay the games he had observed, testing different strategies and imagining victories. Victoria Whitfield, the 54-year-old matriarch of the family, prided herself on being a Massachusetts state chess champion. She regularly hosted elegant chess gatherings for Boston's elite in their immaculate drawing room. These events featured expensive wine classical music from hired musicians and intense chess matches on custom-made marble boards. Victoria particularly enjoyed displaying her trophies prominently during these gatherings, reminding everyone of her intellectual superiority. During these events, Marcus and his mother were tasked with serving refreshments and ensuring the guests' comfort while remaining as unobtrusive as possible. Victoria insisted they wear matching gray uniforms that blended with the wallpaper, making them nearly invisible to her distinguished guests. Marcus used these opportunities to observe the players' techniques, mentally cataloging their openings, defenses, and the subtle psychological warfare that accompanied each match. He noted how Victoria played aggressively against timid opponents, but became defensive when challenged. Her favorite strategy involved sacrificing pawns to create openings for her queen, a move that often surprised her less experienced opponents. After months of silent observation and secret practice, Marcus had developed an intuitive understanding of chess that surpassed many of the adults who played in Victoria's drawing room. His opportunity to demonstrate this knowledge came unexpectedly during one of Victoria's gatherings. The guests had been puzzling over a complex chess problem featured in that month's chess journal. The position seemed impossible to resolve in fewer than 7 moves. As Marcus refilled the water glasses, he glanced at the board and instantly saw the solution. Without thinking, he whispered knight to e5, bishop takes pawn queen to f7 checkmate in 3 moves. The room fell silent. Victoria, who had been boasting about solving the problem earlier that week, turned to Marcus with cold eyes. "What did you say, boy?" Marcus froze, realizing his mistake. "I apologize, Mrs. Whitfield. I was just thinking aloud." Victoria's face reddened with anger and embarrassment. "How dare you interrupt our game? You know nothing about chess." This is a complex position that takes years of experience to understand. She motioned him forward. Since you believe yourself so clever, demonstrate your solution. With trembling hands, Marcus approached the expensive chess set with its hand-carved ivory pieces, acutely aware of every eye in the room watching him. He gently moved the knight, then the bishop, and finally positioned the queen exactly as he had described. "Checkmate in 3 moves," he said, softly avoiding eye contact with anyone in the room. The guests murmured in surprise. Victoria's face contorted with rage and humiliation. She stood abruptly, knocking over her wineglass. "You've been touching my chess set without permission. That's how you knew the answer. You've been snooping through my chess journal." Marcus shook his head. "No, ma'am, I would never." Victoria grabbed him by the shoulder, her manicured nails digging into his skin. "Elaine," she called sharply, "come collect your boy immediately. And expect a reduction in your wages for his improper behavior and for allowing him to damage my expensive chess set with his dirty hands." When Elaine hurried into the room, Victoria continued her tirade. "You need to teach him his place, Elaine. Some people are meant to serve, not play games meant for their betters. Perhaps he should spend more time studying how to be useful instead of touching things that don't belong to him." Later that night, as his mother applied ointment to the crescent-shaped nail marks on his shoulder, Marcus made a silent vow. He would prove himself not just capable of playing chess, but mastering it. He would show Victoria Whitfield and her privileged friends that excellence wasn't determined by wealth or race, but by dedication, intelligence, and heart. From that day forward, he became even more careful about hiding his growing chess abilities, practicing only when absolutely alone, and memorizing games rather than writing down moves that might be discovered. The fire of determination burned brighter with each passing day, fueled by Victoria's cutting remarks and dismissive attitude. One day he promised himself they would see him not as the maid's invisible son, but as a chess player worthy of respect. 6 months passed since the humiliating incident in the Whitfield drawing room. During this time, Marcus dedicated every spare moment to improving his chess skills in secret. While other students spent lunch breaks playing basketball or trading cards, Marcus found quiet corners of the school library to study chess books he borrowed through the interlibrary loan system. He meticulously copied diagrams and notations into a small notebook he kept hidden in his backpack, away from the prying eyes of bullies who would use any excuse to target him. The public library downtown became his sanctuary on Saturday afternoons, when his mother thought he was attending free tutoring sessions. Instead, he pored over chess manuscripts, studied famous matches, and learned the psychological aspects of the game that separated good players from great ones. His dedication might have remained completely hidden if not for an unexpected ally. Mr. Rodriguez, the school janitor, noticed Marcus hunched over a chess puzzle during lunch one day. Rather than shooing him outside, as most adults would have done, Mr. Rodriguez pulled up a chair. "You have the position wrong," he said quietly, moving a knight on Marcus's paperboard. Tal versus Fisher, 1960. Fisher would have placed his knight here to threaten both the queen and rook simultaneously. Marcus looked up in surprise. "You know chess?" The older man smiled, the creases around his eyes deepening. "I was considered a promising player in Puerto Rico many years ago. Before discrimination ended my tournament career. Over the following weeks, they developed a routine. Marcus would help Mr. Prater Rodriguez clean the maintenance room during the first half of lunch, then they would play chess for the remaining 20 minutes. In the privacy of the boiler room, surrounded by mops and cleaning supplies, Marcus found his first real chess mentor, Mr. Seven. Rodriguez taught him subtle techniques absent from book strategies developed through years of practical experience. "Chess is not just moving pieces," he explained one day, while demonstrating an unusual opening. "It is a conversation between minds. Listen to what your opponent is saying with their moves, then respond with your own truth." With Mr. Rodriguez's guidance, Marcus's game improved dramatically. The janitor recognized something special in the boy's play, an intuitive understanding that couldn't be taught. "You have a gift," he told Marcus, "but gifts must be tested to grow stronger." This conversation led to Marcus's first real competition. Using the school's computer lab after classes under the pretense of researching a history project, Marcus entered an anonymous online chess tournament. He created an account under the username Boston Knight, revealing nothing about his age or background. His first opponent was a college student from Minnesota who had been playing competitively for 8 years. Marcus defeated him in 27 moves. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus progressed through the tournament brackets facing increasingly skilled opponents. He won 7 matches and lost 3 each game, teaching him valuable lessons about his strengths and weaknesses. The anonymity of online play freed him from the weight of others' expectations and prejudices. No one knew he was a 12-year-old black boy from South Boston. They only knew he played bold, creative chess that defied conventional patterns. His final match in the tournament came against a player tagged as Mastermind, who turned out to be a chess instructor from Seattle. The game lasted over 2 hours, with Marcus eventually securing victory through a subtle queen sacrifice that led to checkmate 5 moves later. When the final results were posted, Boston Knight had secured 5th place overall in a tournament with over 300 adult participants. Mr. Rodriguez beamed with pride when Marcus showed him the results. "This is only the beginning," he said, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Now you need to play in person, where you can look into your opponent's eyes and truly understand the game." The opportunity came sooner than either expected. Victoria's brother, Richard Whitfield, a chess grandmaster based in New York, came to Boston for a charity chess exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts. The event was advertised in the local paper as featuring America's chess elite raising money for arts education. What caught Marcus's attention, however, was the smaller announcement at the bottom of the article: a scholarship prize of $50,000 would be awarded to the winner of the youth chess tournament held in conjunction with the Plain exhibition. The sum was staggering to Marcus. $50,000 would allow his mother to escape domestic service pay for Marcus's education through high school and possibly beyond, and perhaps even put a down payment on a small apartment of their own. He couldn't ignore such an opportunity, despite knowing that Victoria would likely be one of the judges. The night before the exhibition, Marcus overheard Victoria and Richard discussing the tournament while he helped his mother serve dinner in the Whitfield dining room. "The scholarship is a nice touch," Victoria said, swirling red wine in her crystal glass, "though I doubt any of these local children will demonstrate real talent. Chess requires a certain refined thinking that comes from proper upbringing." Richard nodded absently, more focused on his meal than the conversation. "The sponsors wanted a youth component. It generates better publicity and tax deductions." They continued discussing the technical aspects of the tournament, mentioning that participants would need recommendations from established chess clubs or schools with recognized chess programs. Marcus's heart sank. His school had no chess program, and he belonged to no club. As he cleared the dishes, moving as quietly as possible to avoid attracting attention, he realized the barriers to entry weren't just financial but social. The system was designed to exclude children like him. Later that night, lying on his thin mattress in the servants' quarters, Marcus made a decision. He would find a way to enter the tournament regardless of the obstacles. The prize money represented more than financial security. It symbolized freedom for his mother and himself. With determination burning in his chest, Marcus closed his eyes and visualized the chessboard, planning his next move in a game where the stakes couldn't be higher. The Museum of Fine Arts buzzed with activity as Boston's upper crust gathered for Richard Whitfield's charity chess exhibition. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the marble floor, where tables had been arranged for simultaneous demonstrations. Men in tailored suits and women dripping with jewelry circulated through the crowd, champagne flutes in hand, discussing art acquisitions and summer homes. Marcus stood near the entrance wearing his school uniform, which was the most formal clothing he owned. He had polished his shoes until they gleamed and borrowed a tie from Mr. Rodriguez. Despite his efforts to look presentable, he felt painfully out of place among the wealthy attendees. Security guards eyed him suspiciously, clearly wondering if he belonged. Richard Whitfield sat at a central table, playing against 5 opponents simultaneously, while spectators watched in admiration. His perfectly tailored navy suit and confident posture exuded authority and privilege. At 58, his hair had turned distinguished silver, and his reputation as a chess grandmaster preceded him wherever he went. Trophies from international competitions lined a display table nearby, catching the light and drawing impressed murmurs from onlookers. Marcus watched Richard's technique, carefully noting how efficiently he dispatched his opponents. Each move was precise, calculated, leaving no room for counterattack. After defeating all 5 challengers in under 30 minutes, Richard stood to polite applause. This was Marcus's chance. Gathering all his courage, he approached the Grandmaster as the crowd began dispersing for refreshments. "Mr. Whitfield," Marcus said, his voice steadier than he expected. Richard didn't look down, busy arranging pieces for the next round of demonstrations. "I'm not signing autographs right now, young man," he said dismissively. "Please speak with my assistant." Marcus persisted. "Sir, I want to enter the youth chess tournament, the scholarship competition." Richard barely glanced at him, reaching for his water glass. "Registration closed last week, and we required recommendations from established coaches or chess programs." He finally looked at Marcus, his gaze sweeping over the boy's appearance. "Do you have those?" Before Marcus could answer, a familiar voice cut through the conversation. "Richard, are you really wasting time? Speaking with the help." Victoria Whitfield appeared resplendent in an emerald dress that probably cost more than 6 months of Elaine's salary. Her eyes narrowed when she recognized Marcus. "This is my maid's boy," she announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "He fancies himself a chess player because he once looked at a chess problem in my house." Several attendees turned to look, their expressions ranging from amusement to disdain. Marcus felt his cheeks burn but stood his ground. "Mrs. Whitfield, I would like to enter the tournament. I've been studying chess and believe I could compete well." Victoria's laugh was sharp and cutting. "Do you hear that Richard the boy thinks he can compete?" She addressed the growing crowd of onlookers. "Perhaps we should indulge him. Would anyone like to see my housekeeper's son demonstrate his chess skills? It should provide amusing entertainment before dinner." Marcus hadn't anticipated becoming a spectacle, but he recognized the opportunity despite the humiliation. Richard seemed uncomfortable with his sister's behavior, but didn't contradict her. "Victoria, the exhibition schedule is quite full." Victoria waved away his concern. "Surely we can spare 15 minutes for community outreach. After all, this event is supposedly about encouraging chess among underprivileged youth." The thinly veiled contempt in her voice made several guests shift uncomfortably, though none spoke up in Marcus's defense. "Very well," Richard conceded. "The boy can play 1 game." Victoria stepped forward, a predatory smile on her lips. "Against me. And if he manages to last more than 10 moves, I'll personally sponsor his entry into the tournament." The crowd murmured with interest at this unexpected development. Marcus knew he was being set up for public humiliation, but the chance to secure tournament entry was too important to pass up. He nodded his agreement. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Whitfield." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Set up the demonstration board, Richard. Let's see what our young friend knows about chess." A large magnetic demonstration board was positioned so the gathering crowd could observe the match. Victoria chose to play white, giving her the first move advantage. As they took their seats, Victoria continued performing for her audience. "What grade are you in 5th, 6th? Have they even taught you algebraic notation?" Yet Marcus remained silent, focusing on the board rather than her taunts. The crowd of wealthy white spectators grew, treating the match as amusing entertainment rather than a serious competition. They sipped champagne and made quiet jokes about charity cases and diversity initiatives. Victoria made a show of explaining basic chess concepts to Marcus as she made her first moves as if he had never seen a chess piece before. "This is a pawn," she said condescendingly. "It can only move forward 1 space, except on its first move, when it can move 2. Marcus continued his silence, making solid defensive moves that protected his position without revealing his strategy. He could feel Richard watching him intently from the sidelines, his expression shifting from disinterest to curiosity. After 8 moves, Victoria grew increasingly irritated by Marcus's competent play. She had expected to embarrass him quickly, but instead found herself having to think carefully about her next moves. "Where did you learn to play watching online videos in the public library?" she asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Let me guess you're hoping chess will be your ticket out of your circumstances. How ambitious." Marcus moved his knight to threaten her bishop. "Chess is just a game I enjoy, Mrs. Whitfield," he finally responded, his voice calm despite the knot in his stomach. Victoria's face tightened as she realized the position was more complex than she had anticipated. Well, enjoying a game and mastering it are very different things. Your mother should focus on teaching you practical skills rather than letting you develop false hopes. The match continued past the 10-move mark that Victoria had set as her threshold. The crowd's attention intensified as they realized the boy was more skilled than they had assumed. Victoria became increasingly aggressive, sacrificing pieces for position in her determination to end the match decisively. Marcus recognized her strategy from the games he had observed in her home and carefully avoided the traps she set. After 23 moves, Victoria found herself in a difficult position, her king under pressure and her queen threatened. Rather than resign or fight through the disadvantage, she offered Marcus a draw by repeating the same position 3 times. A draw is the gentlemanly way to conclude. When neither player has a clear advantage, she announced to the crowd as if teaching Marcus proper etiquette. Marcus knew he had a potential winning sequence with 3 or 4 more moves, but also understood the social dynamics at play. His mother's employment depended on Victoria's goodwill. Reluctantly, he accepted the draw, disappointment flooding through him despite having far exceeded expectations. The crowd applauded politely, more out of surprise than appreciation for his skill. "Well played," Richard said, approaching the board with genuine interest. "You've obviously studied the game seriously." Victoria stood abruptly, smoothing her dress. Beginners sometimes achieve reasonable results through unorthodox play. It confuses trained players momentarily. She turned to the crowd with a practiced smile. "Shall we move on to the championship demonstration? Do you feel the weight of this moment? Can you imagine standing in Marcus's shoes as he faces not just a chess opponent, but a system designed to keep him in his place?" Comment number 1, if you think Victoria is being unfair in her treatment of Marcus. Or number 2, if you believe she's justified in testing his abilities this way. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay with us as this intense chess battle continues. What will happen when Victoria refuses to honor her promise? Will Marcus find a way into the tournament despite these obstacles? Let's find out together. The applause faded as Victoria turned away from the demonstration board, effectively dismissing Marcus without acknowledging her promise to sponsor his tournament entry. Richard Whitfield lingered, studying the final position with professional interest, while the wealthy spectators dispersed toward the champagne fountain and hors d'oeuvres tables. Marcus stood awkwardly by the board, unsure whether to speak up or quietly leave. He had fulfilled Victoria's condition by lasting well beyond 10 moves, even forcing her into offering a draw, but her retreating back made it clear she had no intention of honoring their agreement. "Mrs. Whitfield," Marcus finally called, his voice cracking slightly from nerves. "About the tournament entry you mentioned." Victoria paused, turning slowly with an expression of practiced confusion. "Tournament entry, oh that. Well, a draw hardly constitutes a proper demonstration of skill, does it? Any player can achieve a stalemate through defensive moves." Her dismissal was punctuated by sympathetic murmurs from nearby guests who had paused to watch this final interaction. Marcus felt his hopes crumbling. The scholarship opportunity seemed to be slipping away, all because Victoria Whitfield couldn't acknowledge being matched by someone she considered beneath her. "That wasn't our agreement," he said quietly, conscious of the social gulf between them but unwilling to back down. "You said, if I lasted more than 10 moves, you would sponsor my entry." Victoria's smile tightened. "Young man, in the real world, agreements have nuance. I expected a demonstration of actual chess ability, not just survival. Perhaps when you're older, you'll understand how these things work." The condescension in her voice caused several spectators to chuckle, as if Marcus were a child who had misunderstood an adult conversation. Before Marcus could respond, Richard stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Actually, Victoria, I found the boy's play quite interesting." He studied Marcus with newfound curiosity. "What's your name, young man?" "Marcus Johnson, sir." Johnson, Richard repeated thoughtfully. "Are you self-taught?" Marcus hesitated, not wanting to reveal too much about his learning methods or Mr. Rodriguez's help. "Mostly through books and observation, sir." Richard nodded, coming to some internal decision. "Victoria, while I understand your reservations, I believe we should consider what transpired here more carefully." He turned to address the remaining spectators. Chess is a game that reveals character. Today we've seen unexpected talent from an unexpected source. His words carried the weight of his reputation, causing even Victoria to pause. "I propose a more suitable test," Richard continued. "A rematch with proper tournament conditions, official clock's notation, the works." He glanced between Marcus and Victoria. "Higher stakes might make it more interesting for everyone." Victoria's expression sharpened with interest at the mention of higher stakes. "What exactly are you suggesting, Richard?" Richard placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, a gesture that felt more calculating than comforting. "If young Mr. Esther Johnson here can defeat you in an official match, I will personally sponsor him for the tournament and provide coaching through the preliminary rounds." The offer was extraordinary, but Marcus sensed a trap. "And if I lose?" he asked cautiously. Victoria smiled, seeing an opportunity for revenge against the boy who had embarrassed her. "If you lose, your mother must work additional hours without extra pay for a full year. Weekend duty, evening events, everything." The cruelty of the proposal hung in the air. Marcus felt sick at the thought of his mother's already exhausting schedule becoming even more demanding because of his chess ambitions. But the scholarship prize could permanently free her from this servitude. Richard watched Marcus carefully assessing his reaction. "Those terms seem rather harsh, Victoria." "Life is harsh," she replied smoothly. "The boy should learn that actions have consequences, especially when one reaches beyond their station." She turned to Marcus. "Well, do you accept the challenge, or would you prefer to stick to serving refreshments with your mother at my next chess gathering?" Marcus thought of his mother already working 14-hour days to provide for them. He thought of the scholarship money and what it could mean for their future. Most of all, he thought about proving Victoria wrong, showing her and everyone like her that talent and determination weren't limited by race or social class. "I accept," he said firmly, meeting Victoria's gaze directly for the first time. "When will the match take place?" Richard consulted his calendar. 2 weeks from today. That should give both players adequate time to prepare." He turned to Victoria. "The Whitfield Foundation boardroom would make a suitable venue, don't you think? We could invite the tournament committee as observers." Victoria nodded already, mentally selecting her opening strategy. "Perfect. I look forward to a more thorough demonstration of your abilities, Marcus." Her tone made it clear she expected a very different outcome in their rematch. The news of the upcoming match spread quickly through Boston's chess community and the Whitfield social circle. Victoria made sure everyone knew she was facing the Maid's son in what she framed as an educational exhibition rather than a genuine competition. The story gained additional traction when someone leaked that Richard Whitfield himself had expressed interest in the young player's potential. Marcus's preparation began immediately, but was complicated by Victoria's reaction to the challenge. She intensified her psychological warfare, spreading rumors that Marcus must have cheated in their first match, perhaps by watching chess videos on his phone or receiving signals from someone in the crowd. While these accusations weren't taken seriously by Richard or the official chess community, they affected Marcus's daily life. Victoria assigned Elaine additional cleaning tasks that kept her working later into the evening, limiting the time Marcus could spend with his mother and adding to his guilt about the challenge. At school, word somehow spread about the upcoming match, leading to increased bullying from classmates who viewed chess as an odd, elitist pursuit. Several boys from wealthy families took particular pleasure in taunting him, calling him chess boy, and knocking his books from his hands in the hallway. One afternoon, Marcus returned from the library to find his makeshift chess set destroyed, the paper pieces torn and scattered across the schoolyard. The message was clear: people like him weren't welcome in the world of competitive chess. Mr. Rodriguez became Marcus's anchor during this difficult period. When he found Marcus gathering the tattered remains of his paper chess pieces, the janitor invited him to the maintenance room and presented him with a gift: his own old chess set carved from wood with pieces worn smooth from years of use. "This set has seen many battles," Mr. Rodriguez told him. "It was a gift from my father when I was your age. Now it belongs to you." The generosity brought tears to Marcus's eyes, but he tried to refuse. "I can't take this, Mr. Rodriguez." "It's too valuable." The older man shook his head firmly. "A chess set only has value when it's used by someone who appreciates the game. You are that person now." Their practice sessions intensified with Mr. Rodriguez, pushing Marcus to consider multiple strategies and anticipate his opponent's thinking. "Victoria Whitfield plays like someone who has never faced real adversity," he explained. "When pressured, she becomes reckless. When threatened, she attacks blindly rather than defending properly." Marcus took these insights and combined them with his own observations from watching Victoria's past tournament games. He identified patterns in her play, particularly her reliance on a few favorite openings and her tendency to sacrifice positional advantage for quick tactical gains. Each evening after completing his homework and helping with any chores he could to lighten his mother's load, Marcus practiced against himself, playing both sides of the board while imagining Victoria's responses. He developed strategies specifically designed to counter her aggressive style planning variations that would lead her into positions where her impatience would become a disadvantage. While Marcus prepared diligently, Victoria created increasingly difficult circumstances for Elaine. Simple tasks were criticized repeatedly, requiring multiple attempts to satisfy Victoria's suddenly impossibly high standards. Dinner parties were scheduled last minute, forcing Elaine to rearrange her personal commitments. Comments about Elaine's work became laced with racial undertones, thinly veiled reminders of the power imbalance between employer and employee. Marcus witnessed his mother's increasing exhaustion with growing concern. The dark circles under her eyes deepened, and her hands showed signs of damage from harsh cleaning chemicals. One night, finding her asleep at the kitchen table, still wearing her uniform after a 16-hour workday, Marcus nearly decided to forfeit the match. When he gently woke her and suggested as much, Elaine straightened her shoulders with dignity. "No, Marcus, you keep practicing. Some battles need to be fought even when they're difficult." She squeezed his hand. "Your father always said talent rises no matter how hard others try to push it down. Your talent will rise too." The mention of his father, who had died when Marcus was only 4, strengthened his resolve. With renewed determination, Marcus continued his preparation, carrying his father's memory and his mother's sacrifices with him into every practice session. The stakes had risen far beyond a simple chess match or even a scholarship opportunity. This had become a battle for dignity, for recognition, and for the right to pursue excellence, regardless of background. As the match day approached, Marcus felt the weight of these expectations, but also a growing confidence in his abilities. He had faced adversity his entire life. The chessboard was simply another battlefield where he would need to overcome the odds stacked against him. 2 weeks condensed into a blur of chess notations, late-night strategy sessions, and increasing tension as the day of the rematch approached. Marcus divided his time between school caring for his increasingly exhausted mother and obsessive preparation for the most important chess match of his young life. Then disaster struck. Exactly 14 days before the match, Elaine collapsed while polishing the Whitfield's antique silver collection. The family doctor diagnosed extreme exhaustion and recommended immediate bed rest, something impossible for a woman whose livelihood depended on physical labor. Victoria reluctantly allowed Elaine 3 days off, making it clear this accommodation would be reflected in her next paycheck. Marcus found himself suddenly shouldering adult responsibilities while maintaining his studies and chess preparation. Each morning he woke at 5 to prepare breakfast for his mother before school. Evenings were spent cooking simple meals, handling laundry, and helping Elaine take her prescribed medications. In between these duties, he squeezed in homework and chess practice, often studying positions until his eyes burned from fatigue. Despite his mother's condition, Marcus refused to consider withdrawing from the match. The potential scholarship represented their only chance at changing their circumstances permanently. Mr. Rodriguez adjusted their practice schedule, meeting Marcus during short breaks between classes rather than requiring him to stay after school. "Your mother needs you more than chess does right now," he advised. "We will make every minute count." Their condensed sessions focused on Victoria's most likely strategies based on her tournament history. Mr. Rodriguez emphasized psychological preparation as much as tactical skill. Victoria will try to unsettle you, he warned. Remember, chess is played with the mind more than with the hands. The balance between caretaking and preparation took its toll. Marcus's grades began slipping for the first time since elementary school. Dark circles formed under his eyes, mirroring his mother's. He lost weight as meals became irregular, sometimes consisting of nothing more than crackers and peanut butter when time was particularly scarce. His concentration wavered during critical practice moments, prompting concern from Mr. Rodriguez. "You cannot win if you are fighting on too many fronts," the janitor told him after Marcus made an uncharacteristic blunder during practice. "We must find help for your mother." They arranged for Mr. Rodriguez's wife, a home health aide, to check on Elaine during her lunch breaks. This small assistance provided Marcus with precious additional hours for preparation, though guilt plagued him for accepting help from someone who had so little to spare. Unbeknownst to Marcus, another set of eyes had been watching his development with increasing interest. Richard Whitfield, curious about the boy who had held his sister to a draw, began discreetly observing Marcus's practice sessions with Mr. Rodriguez. From a shadowed corner of the schoolyard, Richard witnessed their daily matches, noting Marcus's rapid improvement and unusual approach to standard positions. What particularly caught the Grandmaster's attention was Marcus's creativity in middle-game situations. Rather than following conventional patterns, the boy consistently found unique pathways through complex positions, demonstrating an intuitive understanding that typically required years of intensive training. 1 week before the rematch, Richard made his presence known. As Marcus packed up the chess pieces after a particularly intense practice session, the Grandmaster stepped from the shadows, applauding slowly. "Impressive," Richard said, approaching the startled pair. "Particularly that queen sacrifice sequence. Most players would never consider such a move." Marcus froze, uncertain how to respond to Victoria's brother appearing at his school. Mr. Rodriguez positioned himself slightly in front of Marcus, a subtle protective gesture. "Mr. Whitfield, this is an unexpected visit." Richard waved away the formality. "I've been following young Mr. Johnson's progress with interest. His play against my sister suggested unusual talent. Now I see that impression was correct." He focused his attention on Marcus. "You have a gift for tactical vision. With proper training, you could become exceptional." The compliment, coming from a recognized Grandmaster, momentarily overwhelmed Marcus's suspicion. "Thank you, sir." Richard glanced at his expensive watch. "I have a proposition for you, Marcus. A private one." He looked meaningfully at Mr. Rodriguez. "Perhaps we could speak alone." Mr. Rodriguez crossed his arms. "Anything you wish to say to my student can be said in my presence." Richard's expression hardened momentarily before relaxing into a calculated smile. "Very well. Direct approach, then." He turned to Marcus. "I'm prepared to offer you private coaching starting immediately. Under my guidance, you would not only gain entry to the tournament, but likely advance through several rounds." The offer was extraordinary. Richard Whitfield rarely coached beginners, typically reserving his expertise for professional players willing to pay thousands for a single weekend of instruction. Marcus sensed the catch before it was stated. "And what would you expect in return?" Sir Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Something quite simple. During your match with Victoria, you will play to your full ability for the first 20 moves, then make a calculated error that allows her to win. Nothing obvious, just a minor misjudgment that happens to cost you the game." The proposition hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Marcus felt simultaneously insulted by the offer and terrified by its implications. If Richard believed bribing a 12-year-old was necessary to ensure his sister's victory, then Victoria must be more vulnerable than she appeared. "You want me to throw the match," Marcus stated flatly. Richard shrugged elegantly. "I prefer to think of it as recognizing realities. Victoria is a patron of chess in this community. Her reputation sustains programs that benefit many young players." He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "Between us, my sister has always been overly sensitive about her chess abilities. Her identity is wrapped up in being perceived as exceptional." Mr. Rodriguez stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "You should leave now, Mr. Whitfield." Richard ignored him, keeping his attention fixed on Marcus. "Consider your circumstances, young man. Your mother works for my family. Her position depends entirely on Victoria's goodwill. Win this match, and regardless of any tournament outcome, your mother will never work in Boston again. I'll personally ensure it." The threat was delivered so casually that its cruelty seemed almost incidental. Marcus felt ice form in his stomach, but kept his expression neutral. "What if I refuse your offer?" Richard straightened his already impeccable tie. "Then you'll face Victoria. Without preparation, your mother will face unemployment, and you'll both likely end up relocating to whatever distant city might hire a housekeeper with a negative reference." He checked his watch again. "You have until tomorrow to decide. I'm offering you a path where everyone wins. Victoria maintains her standing. You gain entry to the tournament under my sponsorship, and your mother keeps her position." After Richard departed, Marcus sat in stunned silence. "Mr. Rodriguez placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. "That man fears your ability, Marcus. He would not offer bribes if he believed his sister could win fairly." Despite this encouragement, the threat against his mother loomed large. That evening, instead of practicing specific chess positions, Marcus threw himself into researching Victoria's chess history with newfound intensity. Using the school's computer lab, he accessed archives of tournament bulletins and chess journals, tracing Victoria's career from her first competitions to her most recent victories. A pattern emerged that he hadn't noticed before. In tournaments with strict oversight and professional arbiters, Victoria's performance was solid but unremarkable. However, in local competitions with less rigorous supervision, she consistently outperformed expectations, often making stunning comebacks in adjourned games or sudden improvements after short breaks. Marcus began cataloging specific matches, noting unusual patterns and statistical anomalies. He discovered several instances where Victoria's opponents had raised questions about her play, only to withdraw their concerns shortly afterward, sometimes even leaving the tournament entirely. One particularly vocal critic had subsequently lost his position at a prestigious chess club where the Whitfield family were major donors. The implications were disturbing. Marcus suspected Victoria may have been cheating in tournaments for years with Richard's knowledge and possibly his assistance. The night before the match, as Marcus finalized his preparation at the kitchen table, Victoria accidentally bumped into him while visiting the servants' quarters to discuss schedule changes with Elaine. The collision sent Marcus's carefully organized chess notes flying across the floor. "Oh, how clumsy of me," Victoria said, watching as Marcus scrambled to collect his papers. She deliberately stepped on one page, grinding it under her heel as she turned to leave. "Good luck tomorrow. You'll certainly need it." As Marcus rescued his notes, he discovered Victoria had spilled coffee on several key pages, rendering his analysis of her favorite openings nearly illegible. The message was clear: Victoria Whitfield would use every advantage, fair or unfair, to ensure her victory. Rather than discouraging him, these tactics only strengthened Marcus's resolve. If the Whitfields believed intimidation would force him to concede, they fundamentally misunderstood what chess had come to represent in his life. It wasn't merely a game or even a path to a scholarship. It had become a battlefield where for once the advantages of wealth and privilege could be neutralized by intelligence and preparation. Tomorrow would determine whether that belief was justified. The Whitfield Foundation boardroom transformed into an impromptu chess arena for the rematch. Polished mahogany walls reflected the light from crystal chandeliers, creating an atmosphere of opulence that contrasted sharply with Marcus's simple white shirt and borrowed tie. A professional tournament-grade chess set occupied the center of the massive table, flanked by official timing clocks. Despite Victoria's attempts to frame the match as a casual exhibition, Richard had insisted on proper tournament conditions, including a certified arbiter to oversee the proceedings. Marcus arrived 30 minutes early, accompanied by Mr. Rodriguez, who had taken a rare personal day to support his student. They found the room already filling, with spectators, a mix of chess enthusiasts and Whitfield family associates. The audience had grown considerably from their first match word, having spread about the unusual contest between the state champion and the housekeeper's son. Richard greeted them with practiced cordiality, though his eyes conveyed a silent reminder of their unresolved conversation. Marcus, glad you could join us. Victoria will be here momentarily. She's been looking forward to this rematch. He gestured to the table setup. Tournament conditions as promised. 40 moves in 90 minutes, followed by 30 minutes to finish the game. The arbiter will maintain notation. Marcus nodded, surveying the playing area. The chair adjusted to the perfect height, the lighting positioned to eliminate shadows on the board, the premium chess clock set to official tournament standards, all details that would typically benefit an experienced player over a prize-in novice. He had expected such advantages, but another detail caught his attention. "This isn't a standard tournament set," he observed quietly to Mr. Rodriguez. The chess pieces, crafted from polished obsidian and alabaster, featured intricate Victorian-era designs, with elaborate crowns and detailed facial expressions on the kings and queens. While beautiful, they differed significantly from the Staunton pattern used in official competitions. Richard overheard the comment. "Ah, yes." Victoria insisted on using her personal set, a family heirloom gifted by our grandfather. She's quite superstitious about playing important matches with these pieces. The substitution wasn't technically against regulations, but it created another small disadvantage for Marcus, who would need to carefully identify pieces with unfamiliar shapes during complex calculations. Before he could comment further, Victoria made her entrance dressed in a tailored burgundy suit that projected confidence and authority. Several attendees immediately gravitated toward her, offering wishes for good fortune and commenting on the unusual nature of the match. Just a friendly exhibition, she assured them loudly enough for Marcus to overhear. An opportunity to encourage young talent, regardless of background. Her emphasis on the last word carried unmistakable condescension. As Victoria took her seat across from Marcus, she smiled with predatory confidence. "I hope you've prepared thoroughly. I wouldn't want this to end too quickly." The arbiter called for quiet as the match prepared to begin. Victoria had chosen white pieces again, giving her the first move advantage. The room fell silent as she reached for her king's pawn, initiating the game with the most common opening move in chess. Marcus responded immediately with a Sicilian defense, signaling his willingness to enter complex tactical positions rather than seeking a quiet, drawish game. Victoria raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by his choice of a sophisticated defense favored by aggressive players. The opening phase progressed rapidly, both players making their moves with minimal hesitation. Victoria adopted an aggressive approach, sacrificing a pawn for developmental advantage and active piece placement. Her strategy aimed to overwhelm Marcus with tactical complications before he could establish solid defensive structures. To the spectators, Victoria appeared to be dominating the early game, her pieces controlling central squares while Marcus's forces seemed disorganized and passive. Several of Victoria's friends exchanged knowing smiles, already anticipating her victory. What they failed to recognize was Marcus's deliberate strategy. Each seemingly passive move was part of a complex plan requiring temporary sacrifices to create long-term positional advantages. Mr. Rodriguez, watching intently from the sidelines, recognized the approach they had practiced together, a variation of the hedgehog system designed to absorb pressure before launching a devastating counterattack. After 20 moves, Victoria had captured 3 of Marcus's pawns and a knight, establishing what appeared to be a winning material advantage. Her confidence visibly grew as she attacked more aggressively, pursuing Marcus's pieces across the board with increasing speed. "Check," she announced triumphantly, moving her queen to threaten Marcus's king while simultaneously attacking an undefended rook. Several spectators murmured appreciatively at the double attack. Marcus studied the position, carefully aware that his response would determine the direction of the entire middle game. After nearly 5 minutes of calculation, he made a move that caused Victoria to frown in confusion, sacrificing his rook to protect his king, but seemingly weakening his position further. "Interesting choice," she commented quickly, capturing the offered rook. What Victoria failed to recognize was that Marcus had been implementing a complex strategy requiring sacrifices to create imbalances in the position. His apparent weakness concealed a powerful attacking potential that would only become evident several moves later. Richard, observing from behind Victoria, noticed the trap being laid before his sister did. His expression shifted from confident amusement to concerned recognition as he realized Marcus was executing a sophisticated positional sacrifice that would lead to a powerful kingside attack. By move 30, the dynamic of the game had transformed completely. Marcus's remaining pieces coordinated perfectly, controlling key diagonals and creating threats that Victoria struggled to address simultaneously. Her material advantage became increasingly irrelevant as her pieces, while numerous, lacked harmony and strategic purpose. Check, Marcus announced, quietly sliding his bishop across the board to threaten Victoria's king. The move created multiple threats that couldn't all be addressed with a single response. Victoria's face flushed as she realized the strength of her position had been an illusion. She spent nearly 15 minutes analyzing the board before making a defensive move that addressed the immediate check but left other vulnerabilities unresolved. The spectators, many of whom had been chatting casually during Victoria's early dominance, now watched in silent attention as the momentum shifted dramatically. Even those with limited chess knowledge could sense the change in energy across the board. Marcus pressed his advantage methodically, converting his tactical threats into concrete positional gains. Victoria's play became increasingly desperate, sacrificing material in attempts to complicate the position and create counterplay. Her hand trembled slightly as she moved her pieces. The confidence of the opening phase completely evaporated. After 42 moves, Marcus had navigated through the complexities to establish a clearly winning position. His queen and bishop coordinated perfectly to create an unstoppable attack against Victoria's exposed king. Victoria stared at the board in disbelief, the inevitable conclusion becoming apparent to everyone in the room. In a moment of apparent clumsiness, she knocked over her water glass, spilling liquid across the board and scattering several pieces. "How unfortunate," she exclaimed with unconvincing distress. "We'll need to restart from the beginning." The arbiter stepped forward immediately. "Actually, Mrs. Whitfield, tournament rules specify that when an accident occurs, we reconstruct the position and continue play." Victoria's expression hardened. "This is hardly a formal tournament. It's a friendly exhibition in my family's boardroom." Richard intervened, his voice firm despite the placating smile he offered his sister. "Victoria, we agreed to tournament conditions. Such tactics are beneath you." He turned to the spectators. "Did anyone happen to photograph the board recently? We could use it to reconstruct the position." A chess enthusiast near the front raised his hand. "I took several photos throughout the match. The most recent was just 2 moves ago. With the position accurately reconstructed and the scattered pieces reset, the game resumed." Victoria's desperation became even more evident as she moved her queen to a vulnerable square in a last attempt to create counterplay. "Check," she announced, attempting to project confidence despite the weakness of her position. Marcus had anticipated this exact move during his preparation. Without hesitation, he captured Victoria's queen with his bishop simultaneously protecting his king and establishing a clearly winning position. "Checkmate in 3 moves, Mr." Rodriguez whispered to a nearby spectator, recognizing the inevitable conclusion. "Would you have made the same moves as Marcus in this intense chess battle?" Comment number 1. If you would have taken Victoria's queen with your bishop like Marcus did? Or number 2, if you would have found another response to her desperate check. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of underdogs rising against all odds. Will Victoria accept defeat gracefully? Or does she have one final desperate move to make "Let's continue" this incredible story? Victoria's face contorted with a mixture of disbelief and rage as she surveyed the board, desperately searching for any escape from her impending defeat. The spectators, who had initially viewed the match as light entertainment, now watched with rapt attention as the unexpected drama unfolded. Marcus maintained his composed exterior despite the hurricane of emotions within. One more move would secure his victory and tournament entry. Before he could make his final move, Victoria suddenly pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the polished floor. "This is absurd," she declared, her voice pitched higher than usual. "There's no way a child with no formal training could defeat a state champion unless something improper is happening." The accusation hung in the air like a thundercloud. Marcus remained silent, refusing to be provoked into an emotional response that might validate her claims. Richard stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral. "Victoria, the boy has played exceptionally well. Perhaps we should simply acknowledge his talent." Victoria's eyes flashed dangerously at her brother. "You don't find it suspicious that a 12-year-old housemaid's son suddenly plays at near-master level? He must have received outside assistance or memorized computer analysis." She turned to address the increasingly uncomfortable spectators. "Chess is a game of experience and education. Without proper training, this outcome is simply impossible." The arbiter, a respected figure in Boston's chess community, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Whitfield, I've been watching carefully. The boy's play, while unusual, shows no evidence of external assistance." Victoria dismissed this with a wave of her manicured hand. "Then he must have something on his person. Notes a phone something." She fixed Marcus with an accusatory stare. "I demand he be searched before this match continues." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Such accusations without evidence violated the etiquette of chess, particularly in a match against a child. Marcus felt his cheeks burning with humiliation, but maintained his dignity. "I have nothing to hide, Mrs. Whitfield." Richard intervened, attempting to defuse the situation. "Victoria, this is unnecessary." But Victoria was beyond reason, her reputation and self-image as a chess expert crumbling before an audience of her peers. "I insist," she said, signaling to the security personnel who stood by the boardroom doors. "Either he submits to a search, or I declare this match invalid due to suspected cheating." Left with no choice that wouldn't appear suspicious, Marcus stood and allowed 2 security guards to check his pockets, socks, and even the lining of his jacket. The humiliating process lasted several excruciating minutes, during which the room remained uncomfortably silent, except for Victoria's tapping fingernails on the mahogany table. Mr. Rodriguez watched with barely contained fury, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. As the search progressed, and Marcus was separated from the board, Victoria made a subtle movement, quickly adjusting the position of several pieces when she thought no one was watching. The slight alteration would invalidate Marcus's winning sequence, giving her a defensive resource that hadn't existed moments before. Unfortunately for Victoria, Mr. Rodriguez had been watching her intently, anticipating exactly such a maneuver. She moved the pieces he called out, stepping forward despite Richard's security personnel moving to intercept him. While the boy was being searched, she changed the board position. The accusation ignited instant chaos. Several spectators who had been paying close attention confirmed they had seen something unusual, while Victoria's friends rushed to her defense, claiming the janitor was merely trying to distract from his students' obvious cheating. Victoria rose to her feet, face flushed with indignation. "How dare you? This is exactly the kind of baseless accusation I would expect from someone like you." Hardly surprising, the boy resorts to the same tactics. The racial undertone in her comment was unmistakable, causing several guests to shift uncomfortably. Richard, ever the pragmatist, recognized the situation spiraling beyond containment. "Ladies and gentlemen, please. This has become unnecessarily contentious. Perhaps we should adjourn and continue another day when tempers have cooled." The suggestion might have prevailed if not for the chess enthusiast who had helped reconstruct the position earlier. "I have photographs," he announced, holding up his camera. "We can verify the board position before and after the search." Victoria's expression shifted from righteous indignation to momentary panic before she recovered her composure. "This is ridiculous. I've been a respected member of the chess community for decades. My reputation speaks for itself." Richard placed a restraining hand on his sister's arm, his fingers tightening in warning. "Victoria, enough." Something in his tone caused her to fall silent, though her eyes blazed with barely contained fury. The photographs were examined by the arbiter and several knowledgeable spectators who confirmed that pieces had indeed been moved during the search. The evidence was irrefutable, captured in high-resolution images that clearly showed the subtle but significant changes to key pieces' positions. As this revelation rippled through the room, one of Victoria's longtime rivals, a chess club director who had lost multiple controversial matches to her over the years, stepped forward. This isn't the first time, he stated, addressing the stunned audience. There have been rumors for years about Mrs. Whitfield's unexpected comebacks after adjournments or her sudden insights during bathroom breaks. Victoria's face drained of color. "How dare you slander me in my own home?" Richard have this man removed immediately. Instead of complying, Richard remained unnaturally still, his expression unreadable. The tension in the room reached breaking point as more guests began murmuring about past tournaments and suspicious incidents they had witnessed or heard about. In that moment of rising accusations, Richard made a decision that would permanently alter his relationship with his sister. "Victoria has been cheating for years," he stated quietly, his voice nonetheless carrying throughout the suddenly silent room. "I've known about it since the New England Championships in 1997. The confession stunned everyone, none more than Victoria herself, who stared at her brother with naked betrayal in her eyes. "Richard," she whispered, her voice breaking. "What are you saying?" Richard continued, his tone detached and clinical. At first it was small things. Receiving signals from accomplices in the audience, memorizing computer analysis beyond her understanding, making illegal moves when arbiters weren't watching closely. Later, as her reputation grew and scrutiny increased, the methods became more sophisticated. I helped her several times, providing analysis during adjournments that she claimed as her own insights. He turned to Marcus with something approaching respect in his expression. "That's why I recognized your talent immediately. Victoria couldn't have beaten you fairly, even with all her experience. Your understanding of positional chess is natural, something she's never developed despite decades of play." The room erupted in shocked exclamations and heated discussions as Victoria's carefully constructed image collapsed completely. Unable to bear the public humiliation, she pushed past security and fled the boardroom, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Richard watched her go without attempting to follow his expression, revealing a complex mixture of relief and regret. In the midst of this chaos, Marcus remained focused on the chessboard, studying the position that had been restored to its correct state thanks to the photographs. Despite the dramatic revelations and Victoria's disgrace, he hadn't lost sight of his original goal. When the noise finally subsided, Marcus looked up at Richard and the arbiter. "May we complete the game?" he asked simply. The question so focused and professional amid the scandal-earned murmurs of admiration from the chess enthusiasts present. The arbiter nodded, impressed by the boy's composure. "Yes, though your opponent has departed." Richard stepped forward. "I'll take her place if that's acceptable, though the outcome isn't in doubt." Marcus nodded, and Richard sat in Victoria's vacated chair. After examining the position carefully, Richard tipped over his king in resignation. "Checkmate in 3 moves, as you well know. Well played, Marcus Johnson." As the spectators applauded, some approaching to congratulate him personally, Marcus experienced not triumph, but a profound sense of vindication. He had entered the Whitfield mansion as the invisible Maid's son and would leave as a chess player who had earned respect through skill and integrity rather than privilege or deception. Mr. Rodriguez placed a hand on his shoulder, pride evident in his weathered features. "You won more than a chess match today," he said softly. "You changed the game entirely." The aftermath of Victoria's disgrace spread through Boston's social circles like wildfire. By evening, the story had reached every chess club in the city, embellished with each retelling until it achieved nearly mythical status. The young black prodigy who had exposed years of cheating by a prominent socialite. Marcus returned home that night to find his mother waiting anxiously, having heard fragments of the drama from other household staff. "Is it true?" Elaine asked, her expression a mixture of concern and cautious hope. "They're saying Victoria had some kind of breakdown during your match." Marcus recounted the events, carefully downplaying the more dramatic moments to spare his mother additional worry. He emphasized his victory and Richard's confirmation that he would be sponsored for the tournament, but avoided detailing Victoria's accusations or the humiliating search he had endured. Even with his measured account, Elaine recognized the significance of what had transpired. "Things will change now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Victoria won't forget this embarrassment." Her prediction proved accurate sooner than either expected. The following morning, Richard appeared at their apartment door, his luxury car attracting curious stares from neighbors. He stood awkwardly in their small living room, looking out of place in his tailored suit amid their modest furnishings. "Victoria has taken a leave of absence," he announced without preamble. "She's seeking treatment at a private facility in Vermont. The official explanation is exhaustion and stress." Marcus nodded, unsurprised that the Whitfields would create a narrative that preserved as much dignity as possible. "I hope she receives the help she needs," he said, sincerely understanding that Victoria's behavior stemmed from deeper issues than mere competitiveness. Richard studied him with renewed interest. "You continue to surprise me, Marcus. Most would express satisfaction at her downfall after how she treated you and your mother." His gaze shifted to Elaine. "Which brings me to the second purpose of my visit. I recognize that your position in the Whitfield household has become untenable." Elaine straightened her spine, prepared for the dismissal she had anticipated since yesterday's events. "I understand, sir. I'll collect my things immediately." Richard raised a hand to interrupt her. "Actually, I'm here to offer you a different position. My household in New York requires a manager, someone to oversee staff and coordinate events. The salary is double what Victoria has been paying you, with proper healthcare benefits and paid vacation time." The offer was so unexpected that Elaine sank onto their worn sofa. "Manager. But I've always been household staff, not management." "You've effectively managed Victoria's household for years, while receiving neither the title nor the compensation," Richard replied. "I'm simply recognizing your actual contributions." His attention returned to Marcus. "As for you, young man, I intend to honor my promise regarding tournament sponsorship. However, there's a complication we should discuss." Marcus had been waiting for the other shoe to drop. What kind of complication? Richard's expression turned grim. "News of yesterday's events has reached the tournament committee. Several members have suddenly expressed concern about entry requirements and qualification standards. The official line is that they're protecting the integrity of the competition, but the reality is more complex." "They don't want me in their tournament," Marcus stated flatly, recognizing the familiar pattern of exclusion dressed up in bureaucratic language. Richard didn't deny it. The chess world can be exceptionally conservative, particularly when established hierarchies are threatened. Victoria's friends on the committee are using procedural rules to create barriers. He sighed heavily. "I could force the issue using my influence, but it would make your participation a political statement rather than a recognition of your talent." The injustice burned in Marcus's chest, but he maintained his composure. After coming so far, and sacrificing so much to be blocked by invisible barriers, felt cruelly familiar. "What options do I have?" Richard considered the question carefully. "Several. We could fight the committee's decision, though that battle might take longer than the tournament itself. We could find another competition, perhaps in New York, where my influence is stronger." Or he paused, measuring his next words. "You could accept that some institutions aren't worth the effort to reform. Create your own path instead." Before Marcus could respond, there was a knock at their apartment door. Elaine opened it to find a delegation of Whitfield household staff, led by Mrs. Patel the cook and Jerome the groundskeeper. They had come to express solidarity with Elaine and share information that had emerged since yesterday's match. "Victoria's friends are spreading rumors," Mrs. Patel reported, her normally reserved manner giving way to righteous indignation. "They're saying Marcus cheated, that the photos were doctored, that Mr. Rodriguez coached him illegally during breaks." Jerome nodded grimly. "They're calling it a conspiracy to discredit her. Some are even suggesting racial motivations, claiming Marcus was set up as a pawn to destroy Victoria's reputation." The news was disheartening but unsurprising. Marcus had experienced enough discrimination to recognize how privilege protected itself when threatened. The wealthy had resources beyond money, including the power to control narratives and manipulate public opinion. Richard listened to these reports with increasing concern. "This is worse than I anticipated. They're attempting to rewrite yesterday's events entirely." His phone buzzed with a message which he read with a deepening frown. "The tournament committee has officially changed their qualification requirements. Entrants now need documented participation in at least 3 sanctioned competitions within the past year." He looked at Marcus apologetically. "A rule created specifically to exclude you." The injustice might have crushed a less resilient spirit, but Marcus had spent his life navigating systems designed to exclude him. Rather than defeat, he felt a familiar determination rising within him. "If one door closes, we find another," he said, recalling his mother's frequent advice during difficult times. "Or we build our own door." Richard's expression shifted from concern to curious interest. "What do you have in mind?" Marcus turned to Mrs. Patel and Jerome. "Victoria's friends control the official tournament, but they don't control every chess venue in Boston. What if we organized our own event?" The idea took root immediately. Jerome mentioned that his church had a community hall that could accommodate several chess tables. Mrs. Patel knew several restaurant owners who might sponsor refreshments. Another staff member had a cousin who worked for a local newspaper who might cover the story. Within minutes, the cramped apartment buzzed with energy as a grassroots tournament began taking shape. Richard observed this flurry of community organizing with fascination. "You understand, this won't have the prestige or scholarship prize of the official tournament." Marcus nodded. "It's not about the money anymore. It's about showing that talent exists everywhere, not just in privileged spaces. It's about creating opportunities that don't depend on someone else's approval." The conviction in his voice impressed everyone present, none more than his mother, who watched her son transform adversity into opportunity with tears of pride in her eyes. As the impromptu planning session continued, Richard received another call. After a brief conversation, he returned with news that added another layer to the evolving situation. "Victoria has apparently been making calls from her treatment facility. Several of your mother's former employers have received warnings against hiring her, citing fabricated incidents of theft and negligence. The revelation struck Elaine like a physical blow. She would destroy my reputation entirely." Richard's expression hardened. "My sister has always been vindictive when cornered. I've enabled her behavior for too long, making excuses instead of demanding accountability." He turned to Elaine with newfound resolve. "My offer stands, Mrs. Johnson. In fact, I'm making it effective immediately, if you accept. My driver can take us to the Whitfield house to collect your belongings today." The offer represented security and dignity that had long been denied to Elaine, but she hesitated, looking toward her son. "Marcus has school here, his friends, Mr. Rodriguez. I can't uproot him because of my situation." Marcus took his mother's hand. "Mom, this is an opportunity for both of us. New York has better chess programs, more competitions." He smiled reassuringly. "Besides, I can make new friends anywhere." The decision wasn't simple, but the alternative, staying in Boston to face Victoria's continued vengeance, offered little appeal. By evening, Elaine had accepted Richard's offer, and they had begun making arrangements for the move to New York. As word spread about their impending departure and the circumstances behind it, community support materialized in unexpected ways. Mr. 8. Rodriguez organized a farewell gathering at school. Neighbors offered help with packing. Even some of Boston's legitimate chess enthusiasts, disturbed by the tournament committee's transparent manipulation of rules, reached out to express support and provide introductions to New York's chess community. 3 days before their scheduled departure, Marcus received a visitor who would provide the final piece to this complex puzzle. Thomas Blackwell, director of the Harlem Chess Initiative, arrived at their apartment with an invitation that would change everything. "We've heard about what happened," he explained, settling onto their sofa with the confidence of someone comfortable in any environment. "Our program focuses on developing chess talent in underserved communities. We currently have 28 students competing nationally, including 3 who recently earned master ratings." He handed Marcus a formal letter. "We'd like you to join us with a full scholarship to our intensive training program." The opportunity surpassed anything Marcus had imagined possible. The Harlem Chess Initiative was renowned for producing exceptional players who competed internationally, breaking barriers in a game historically dominated by privilege. "This isn't charity," Blackwell emphasized, correctly reading Marcus's hesitation. "We invest in talent that might otherwise be overlooked. Based on the analysis of your match against Victoria Whitfield that Richard shared with us, you have extraordinary potential." As Marcus examined the scholarship offer, Blackwell turned to Elaine. We also offer parent support programs including employment networking and housing assistance if needed. Our community believes in developing the whole family, not just the player. The comprehensive support structure brought tears to Elaine's eyes. For the first time, she could envision a future where both she and Marcus could thrive, not just survive. That evening, as they continued packing for their move, Marcus reflected on the twisting path that had led them here. What had begun as a personal challenge to prove his abilities had evolved into something far more significant. Victoria's attempts to maintain her privileged position had inadvertently created opportunities that would have otherwise remained closed. As difficult as the experience had been, it had revealed that talent and determination could sometimes overcome even the most entrenched systems of exclusion. 3 months later, settled in a comfortable apartment in Harlem and thriving under Blackwell's mentorship, Marcus would face his greatest chess challenge yet. But that would be another chapter in his increasingly remarkable story. 3 months after leaving Boston, Marcus stood in the grand ballroom of New York's Millennium Hotel, surveying the championship tournament that represented everything he had been fighting for. 64 chess tables stretched across the polished floor, each occupied by focused young players from across the country. Unlike the Boston tournament that had rejected him, this prestigious competition sponsored by the National Chess Foundation welcomed talent regardless of background or connections. Marcus had qualified through a series of preliminary tournaments where his exceptional play had attracted attention from chess columnists and coaches alike. Now, having advanced through 5 grueling rounds, he stood among the final 8 competitors, vying for the National Youth Championship. The transformation in Marcus's life since leaving Boston had been remarkable. The Harlem Chess Initiative had provided not just intensive training, but a community of peers who understood his journey. For the first time, he trained with other young black chess players who faced similar barriers and shared similar dreams. Thomas Blackwell's coaching had refined Marcus's natural talent, converting intuitive understanding into structured knowledge while preserving the creative spark that made his play unique. Elaine had flourished as well in her new position managing Richard's New York household. With regular hours, appropriate compensation, and treatment as a professional rather than a servant, she had regained her health and confidence. She sat proudly in the spectator area, accompanied by Mr. Rodriguez, who had traveled from Boston for the championship rounds. As Marcus prepared for his quarterfinal match, a familiar figure approached from across the ballroom. Victoria Whitfield, looking thinner and somewhat subdued after her treatment, walked directly toward him with purpose in her stride. Richard, who had become Marcus's unofficial patron, moved to intercept his sister, but Marcus signaled that the intervention wasn't necessary. He would face this final confrontation on his own terms. Victoria said, her voice quieter than he remembered. "May I speak with you briefly?" He nodded, maintaining a polite but cautious demeanor. "I wanted to apologize." She began, her words carefully measured. "My behavior in Boston was inexcusable. The treatment program has helped me recognize patterns of entitlement and prejudice that I'm working to address." The apology seemed rehearsed, but not entirely insincere. Marcus acknowledged it with a simple nod. "Thank you for saying that, Mrs. Whitfield." Victoria glanced around at the tournament setting. "I understand you've done well for yourself. Richard speaks highly of your progress." Something in her tone triggered Marcus's instincts honed through years of navigating interactions with those who viewed him as less than equal. The apology, he realized, was preliminarily to something else. "I appreciate your support," he replied carefully. "Was there something specific you wanted to discuss before my match?" Victoria's mask of contrition slipped slightly. "Actually, yes. A word of advice from someone who has played in many championships." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Your opponent today, Bradley Williams, has a particular weakness against the Caro-Kann defense. He consistently misplays the exchange variation. You might find that useful." Marcus immediately recognized the deception. He had studied Bradley's games thoroughly and knew the young master actually excelled against the Caro-Kann, having written a widely praised analysis of the opening for Chess Life magazine. Victoria was attempting one final sabotage, providing false information that would lead him into a prepared variation where Bradley was exceptionally strong. "Thank you for the suggestion," Marcus replied neutrally, revealing nothing of his understanding. "I'll keep that in mind." Victoria's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Best of luck, Marcus. The chess world will be watching." As she walked away, Marcus felt a complex mixture of emotions. Victoria's attempt at sabotage revealed she hadn't truly changed yet. He felt a strange gratitude for the experience. Facing her discrimination had ultimately led him to opportunities he might never have discovered otherwise. The path had been painful but necessary for his growth. As the quarterfinal round began, Marcus faced Bradley Williams, a 16-year-old prodigy from Seattle, with a reputation for aggressive tactical play. Following his own prepared strategy, rather than Victoria's misleading advice, Marcus employed the Sicilian defense, entering complex positions where calculation and intuition would matter more than memorized variations. The match proved extraordinarily difficult, stretching to nearly 4 hours and 87 moves before Marcus secured victory through a brilliant endgame sequence that drew applause from spectators and commentators alike. The semifinal the following day presented an entirely different challenge. Marcus's opponent, Sophia Chen, played methodical positional chess that tested his patience and strategic understanding. Their contest became a masterclass in subtle maneuvering, with advantages shifting incrementally until Marcus finally broke through in the endgame, advancing to the championship final. Throughout the tournament, Marcus had noticed officials scrutinizing his play with particular attention, checking his behavior during breaks, and examining his score sheet with unusual thoroughness. The message was clear. As an outsider who had already been associated with one chess controversy, he faced additional scrutiny that other competitors did not. Rather than resenting this treatment, Marcus used it to ensure his play was beyond reproach, documenting his analysis and maintaining complete transparency in his preparation. The discrimination, while unjust, had taught him to navigate systems not designed for his success. The evening before the championship match, Marcus received disturbing news from Thomas Blackwell. "There's been a change in the schedule," his coach informed him gravely. "The final has been moved forward by 2 hours. The official notice was supposedly sent yesterday, but we never received it." The administrative error was transparently deliberate, an attempt to disrupt Marcus's preparation routine and ensure he arrived rushed and flustered. Victoria's influence, it seemed, extended beyond Boston's chess community to national organizations, where her family's donations carried weight. Marcus took the news calmly. "Then we'll adjust our schedule accordingly." The morning of the championship dawned with additional complications. Their taxi driver took an unnecessarily long route, claiming construction detours that didn't exist. When they finally arrived at the hotel, security insisted on checking Marcus's credentials 3 times before allowing him entry. Despite these obstacles, Marcus reached the playing area with barely 5 minutes to spare before forfeit time. His opponent, defending champion Ethan Preston, already sat at the board perfectly composed after a full hour of relaxed preparation. Ethan represented everything. The chess establishment valued the son of a corporate lawyer and a university professor, educated at private schools with dedicated chess programs since age 5, groomed for success with private coaches and international tournaments. His perfectly pressed blazer and confident demeanor contrasted sharply with Marcus's slightly wrinkled shirt and rushed appearance. As Marcus took his seat, breathing heavily from his hurried arrival, he noticed something unexpected in the spectator area. Behind his mother and Richard stood dozens of unfamiliar faces. Families from the Harlem Chess Initiative, service workers from Richard's household, and their children, community members who had heard his story through Boston's network of domestic staff. Elaine had organized this show of solidarity, ensuring her son wouldn't face this final challenge alone. The tournament director approached the table for final instructions. Standard time control: 90 minutes for 40 moves, followed by 30 minutes to completion. Notation is required. Any questions? Both players shook their heads, and the championship match began. Ethan, playing white, opened with the aggressive King's Gambit, immediately establishing his intention to dictate the game's character. Marcus declined the gambit, choosing a solid response that would lead to a strategic battle rather than tactical fireworks. The early moves proceeded rapidly, both players operating from prepared analysis. As they transitioned into the middle game, Ethan's superior opening preparation became evident. His pieces coordinated perfectly, controlling central squares and creating pressure against Marcus's position. Several spectators exchanged knowing glances, assuming the expected outcome was unfolding the established champion, easily handling the upstart challenger. What they failed to recognize was Marcus's extraordinary defensive technique. Rather than attempting flashy counterattacks, he methodically neutralized Ethan's threats while constructing an unbreakable position. The strategy required tremendous patience and precise calculation qualities Marcus had developed through years of navigating hostile environments where mistakes carried severe consequences. As the game progressed past the 30th move, Ethan's confidence visibly diminished. His prepared variations had been exhausted without producing the expected advantage, and he now faced a resilient opponent who showed no signs of weakening. The defending champion began consuming more time on each move, occasionally glancing at his coach with uncertainty in his eyes. The spectators sensed the shift in momentum, the room growing quieter as concentration intensified. By move 40, the position had transformed entirely. Marcus's seemingly passive defense had concealed a powerful strategic concept, the gradual accumulation of small advantages that collectively created overwhelming pressure. Ethan found his once coordinated pieces awkwardly placed, responding to threats rather than creating them. The championship was slipping from his grasp with each move. In desperation, Ethan sacrificed a knight for attacking chances, hoping to create tactical complications that might confuse his less experienced opponent. It was precisely the opportunity Marcus had been waiting for. With calm precision, he navigated the resulting complications, emerging with a material advantage and a technically winning position. 3 moves later, Ethan extended his hand in resignation, acknowledging what everyone in the room now recognized: a new champion had emerged, one who had overcome obstacles far greater than those presented by the chessboard alone. The moment of victory brought no shouting or excessive celebration from Marcus. He simply shook Ethan's hand respectfully, before embracing his mother, whose tears expressed everything words could not. The applause that filled the ballroom represented more than acknowledgement of chess excellence. It recognized the triumph of talent and determination over entrenched systems of privilege and exclusion. In the days that followed, Marcus's victory generated attention far beyond the chess world. Newspapers published features on the housekeeper's son, who had become a national champion. Youth programs in underserved communities reported increased interest in chess. The Harlem Chess Initiative received new funding offers and enrollment inquiries. More importantly, tournament organizers across the country began examining their qualification requirements, recognizing how seemingly neutral rules often functioned as barriers to talented players without access to established pathways. 6 months later, Marcus stood before a different kind of audience in a community center in Harlem. 28 children ranging from 7 to 15 years old watched attentively as he demonstrated a clever checkmate pattern on a demonstration board. The chess program he had established with his championship winnings focused specifically on students from backgrounds similar to his own. Chess isn't just about moving pieces, he told them, echoing Mr. Rodriguez's words from what seemed like a lifetime ago. It's about seeing possibilities others miss. It's about creating opportunities where none existed before. As Marcus guided these young players through positions and principles, he recognized that his journey had come full circle. The game that had once been his private escape had become a vehicle for creating the change he wanted to see. Victoria Whitfield's discrimination, intended to maintain exclusive barriers around what she considered her domain, had instead helped launch a movement toward greater inclusion. The true victory wasn't the championship title, or even the scholarship that would eventually send Marcus to college. It was the recognition that systems designed to exclude could be transformed when talent refused to be denied and communities united to create alternative paths to excellence. As he watched his students analyze positions with growing confidence, Marcus understood that each of them represented a move in a much larger game, one where the ultimate checkmate would be delivered, not against an individual opponent, but against prejudice itself. What do you think was the most powerful moment in Marcus's journey? Was it standing up to Victoria in their first match, exposing her cheating, or winning the championship against all odds? Comment below with your thoughts. If this story of determination and overcoming discrimination inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that talent can rise no matter how others try to push it down. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Marcus's story teaches us that true excellence can emerge from the most unlikely places when determination meets opportunity. His journey reveals how systems of privilege often create invisible barriers disguised as qualifications or standards that serve primarily to maintain exclusivity rather than identify talent. Yet these barriers can be overcome through perseverance, community support, and the courage to create alternative paths when traditional ones are blocked. The story also illustrates the transformative power of mentorship. Mr. Rodriguez and later Thomas Blackwell provided not just chess knowledge, but the crucial belief that Marcus belonged in spaces that society told him were not meant for people like him. Their guidance helped transform raw talent into disciplined skill. Perhaps most importantly, Marcus's triumph demonstrates that meaningful change rarely comes from working within broken systems. When faced with discrimination, Marcus didn't just fight for individual acceptance, he helped create new structures that would benefit others facing similar obstacles. His ultimate victory wasn't just personal achievement, but opening doors that would remain open for those who followed. In our own lives, we too can choose whether to accept artificial limitations placed upon us or to recognize them as challenges to overcome through creativity, community, and unwavering belief in our inherent worth and potential. What barriers have you faced in your own life that seem designed to keep you out rather than welcome you in? Has there been a moment where you had to create your own path when traditional routes were closed to you? Share your experiences in the comments below. If Marcus's determination to overcome discrimination and create new opportunities inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of resilience and triumph against the odds. Don't forget to share this video with someone who might need encouragement to keep pursuing their dreams despite facing obstacles that seem insurmountable. Remember, just like Marcus showed us, your talent and worth aren't defined by others' prejudices, but by your own persistence and courage. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and may you find the strength to make your own moves toward victory, no matter what challenges the game of life presents.